On the 1st of June, 2026, HeyMax removed 17 redemption partners in a single day and ended its Cash for Miles program. A roster of 38 became 20, 45% of the shelf, gone. The company did not publicly say why. This volume is an independent audit of HeyMax's burn side. Every program a member can move max miles into, what the shelf's shape reveals, and which unworked partners make the most business sense. Researched in August 2026 from public sources. Nobody paid for it, nobody previewed it, and nothing in it is financial advice. A companion volume does the same for the earn side. The reason for the split is that the two halves are moving in opposite directions. While the burn side contracted by nearly half, the earn side kept adding merchants weekly and signed a two-way coalition deal. One was being pruned on cost, the other was being extended. And the cost is knowable, because HeyMax quotes both sides of its own currency. FlyAnywhere reimburses max miles at 1.8 cents. Any flight, any airline, any cabin, paid by PayNow in 90 minutes. That is the floor. HeyMax First, the 2026 membership, lends miles forward at an access fee of 2.3 to 3 cents, depending on tier. That is the ceiling. Now put a number from outside beside them. MileLion's analysis of the pruning points at retail mile costs. American AAdvantage at roughly 3.5 US cents, as the reason Cash for Miles was unsustainable. A partner whose miles cost 3.5 cents cannot be funded by a currency that sells at 3 and buys back at 1.8. Not at volume, not at any growth rate, not ever. So the 17 were not a strategy change. They were the partners costing more than HeyMax's own currency is worth. The pruning is the moment a company discovered its funding ceiling, empirically in public, and acted on it. Then look at who went and who stayed. The casualties were overwhelmingly Western and Gulf. Aeroplan, AAdvantage, Alaska, Avianca, British Airways, Emirates, Etihad, Frontier, United, Qantas, Turkish, Virgin Australia. The survivors are Asia Pacific, Japan Airlines, Cathay, EVA Vietnam Airlines, Garuda, Philippine Airlines, AirAsia, Xiamen, Air Astana, Air India, plus Flying Blue, SAS, Qatar, Ethiopian, and Air Arabia. The shelf did not just shrink. It regionalized onto exactly the corridors this series spent 18 market volumes mapping. And it happened by subtraction, not by design. Against that backdrop sits a public commitment: 50 transfer partners by 2027. From 21 in August 2026, that is roughly 2 signings every month for 16 months, against a filter that did not exist when the first 38 were assembled. This volume's central prediction is that the 50 will not look like the 38 because the arithmetic forbids it, and that the shelf's real growth is already leaving aviation. Since the pruning, HeyMax has added 1 airline and 1 lounge network. Plaza Premium's Smart Traveler, signed on the 4th of August 2026, is the first non-flight, non-hotel category on the shelf. A lounge pass is far cheaper to fund than a business class seat. And one absence has to be met head-on rather than dodged: KrisFlyer. A Singapore platform, 21 transfer partners, and the home market aspiration is not among them. Chapter 6 explains why, and the answer is structural. You cannot sign a counterparty who needs nothing. 11 chapters, the shelf as it stands, the day it shrank. The spread, 50 by 2027, the category that is actually growing, KrisFlyer, the Signable Ones, what one door means, what the shelf says about the company, and a verdict with 5 falsifiers, 4 of which need data no external analyst will ever see. Let's begin. Chapter 1, the shelf as it actually stands. 21 partners, 15 airlines, 6 hotel and travel credit programs. Here is the whole thing, because almost nobody publishes it in one place, and the shape is the argument. The airlines by ratio. AirAsia Rewards leads the board at 1 to 1.2. the best headline ratio in the lineup. Then a long flat plateau at 1-to-1, Air Arabia, Air Astana Nomad Club, Air France LM Flying Blue, Air India Maharaja Club, Cathay's Asia Miles, EV Air Infinity Mileage Lands, Ethiopian Sheba Miles, Garuda Miles, Japan Airlines Mileage Bank, Philippine Airlines Mabuhay Miles, Qatar Airways Privilege Club, SAS Euro Bonus, Vietnam Airlines Lotus Miles, and Xiamen Air Egret Miles. 14 of the 15 sit at exactly 1-to-1. That uniformity is itself informative. HeyMax is not negotiating differentiated rates. It is negotiating admission at a standard. Now the hotels, and here the spread is enormous. IHG1 rewards at 1-to-1.5, the best hotel ratio on the shelf. Wyndham at 1-to-1. Accor Live Limitless at 3-to-2, devalued from 1-to-1 on the 1st of July 2026. Shangri-La Circle at 5-to-1, with a 5,000-mile minimum, a genuinely poor rate, which the dataset describes as such. Radisson rewards listed as coming soon. And Luxury escapes at 1-to-3, which is not miles at all but hotel and travel agency credit, so its headline ratio is not comparable to the others. Read the two lists together, and the asymmetry jumps out. The airline shelf is standardized and flat. The hotel shelf ranges from 1-to-1.5 down to 5-to-1, a 7.5-fold spread in what a max mile is worth, depending on which door you walk through. That is not a criticism of the negotiators. Hotel points are worth wildly different amounts, and a ratio that tracks underlying value is more honest than one that does not. But it does mean the burn side has no single exchange rate, and a member who does not know that will make bad decisions with real money. The mechanics are consistent and good. Minimum 1,000 max miles, then single-mile increments after that. Most transfers quoted at 1 business day and usually near instant. Japan Airlines, added on the 2nd of July 2026, follows the same pattern. Single-mile increments after the minimum is a genuinely member-friendly design, and worth naming, because the industry standard is 1,000-point blocks that strand balances. Now the bonus cadence. HeyMax runs roughly 1 transfer bonus a month, rotating across partners. 25% to Flying Blue in June 2026. 20% to Asia Miles the same month, with MileLion independently confirming the Cathay promotion on the 1st of May. Note where the bonuses land. Flying Blue and Asia Miles, the two most redemption-useful programs on the shelf. Bonuses are not spread evenly. They concentrate on the partners members actually want. That is a sensible way to spend a promotional budget and a tell about which relationships carry the product. So what is this shelf good at? If you want to fly with an Asia Pacific in a premium cabin, it is a genuinely strong roster. Japan Airlines, Cathay, EVA, and Vietnam Airlines cover the corridors. The market volume spent 18 chapters mapping. Flying Blue is the one long-haul European workhorse, and the dataset names it the most valuable surviving partner for long-haul premium cabins. And what is it not good at? North America in any meaningful sense, the Gulf beyond Qatar, and Avio's Chapter 8 subject, which now runs through a single door. One number to carry into the next chapter. This roster is 21. HeyMax has publicly committed to 50 by 2027. Chapter 2, the day the shelf shrank by 45%. On the 1st of June 2026, HeyMax removed 17 redemption partners and ended cash for miles. Final redemptions closed on the 31st of May. The 14 airlines, Air Canada Aeroplan, Alaska's Atmos Rewards, American AAdvantage, Avianca Life Miles, British Airways Executive Club, Emirates Skywards, Etihad Guest, Frontier Miles, Hainan Fortune Wings Club, Qantas Frequent Flyer, THAI Royal Orchid Plus, Turkish Miles and Smiles, United Mileage Plus, and Virgin Australia Velocity. The 3 hotels, Hilton Honors, Marriott Bonvoy, World of Hyatt. A roster of 38 became 20. Japan Airlines Mileage Bank was added on the 2nd of July, bringing it to 21. Accor was devalued from 1-to-1 to 3-to-2 on the 1st of July. HeyMax did not publicly state why. That absence matters, and this volume will not fill it with invention. What follows is the analysis published by MileLion, the market's leading publication. It should be read as their reasoning rather than the company's explanation. The cash for miles mechanism was structurally unsustainable because members could convert at any time at regular pricing, and fulfilling that could be very expensive. The worked example given is American AAdvantage at roughly 3.5 US cents per mile. Alongside that, issuing prepaid Visa debit cards carried real administrative burden, and not every partner had a straightforward mile purchase process. Now put that 3.5 cents next to HeyMax's own numbers, because together they explain everything. HeyMax First sells max miles forward at an access fee of 2.3 to 3 cents per mile, depending on tier. FlyAnywhere reimburses miles at 1.8 cents. So the currency has a published ceiling around 3 cents and a published floor at 1.8. A partner whose miles cost 3.5 cents at retail cannot be fulfilled inside that band, at any volume, on any growth assumption, no matter how much members want it. The 17 were not a strategy change. They were the partners whose miles cost more than HeyMax's own currency is worth. That reframing matters, because cut 17 partners reads as retreat and discovered its own funding ceiling empirically reads as repricing. The second is what happened. A company that had spent 3 years signing whatever it could sign ran the arithmetic and removed everything above the line. And the geography of the cut list is the finding this chapter exists for. Look at who went. Aeroplan, AAdvantage, Alaska, Avianca, British Airways, Emirates, Etihad, Frontier, United, Qantas, Turkish, Virgin Australia. Overwhelmingly Western and Gulf. Look at who survived. Japan Airlines, Cathay, EVA, Vietnam Airlines, Garuda, Philippine Airlines, AirAsia, Xiamen, Air Astana, Air India, plus Flying Blue, SAS, Qatar, Ethiopian, and Air Arabia. Overwhelmingly Asia-Pacific, with a thin European and Gulf remainder. The shelf did not just shrink, it regionalized. And that is not a coincidence, because the two facts have a common cause. Mid-sized Asian carriers who want feeder volume sell miles wholesale at rates a young platform can pay. Mega programs with more demand than seats sell at retail, or not at all. When you filter 38 partners by can be bought below 2 cents, you get Asia. Which means HeyMax's redemption geography now matches its corridor geography. The same Singapore to Bangkok, Hong Kong to Tokyo, Jakarta and Manila map the market volumes spent 18 chapters describing. The burn shelf and the earn footprint finally point the same way. One consequence worth flagging early. British Airways removal left Qatar Airways Privilege Club as HeyMax's only gateway into the Avios pool. A single point of access to one of the world's most useful currency families is a concentration risk, not a portfolio. Chapter 8 returns to it. And the community reaction reported honestly. The commentary that followed focused on app complexity and usability, rather than on the partner cuts themselves. That is a product criticism, not a loyalty economics one, and it would be convenient to skip. It belongs here because it suggests members felt the friction of using HeyMax more acutely than the loss of programs most of them never transferred to. Chapter 3, The Spread. HeyMax quotes both sides of its own currency. That is the most important structural fact on the burn side, and it is not described anywhere as what it is. The floor first. FlyAnywhere, launched June 2025, lets a member book any flight, any airline, any cabin, and be reimbursed by PayNow at 1.8 cents per mile, in 60 to 90 minutes. That is a genuine category first, and it establishes the minimum value of a max mile. No member ever has to accept less because this door is always open. Now the ceiling. HeyMax First, the membership launched in 2026, lends members miles against future earning. 4 tiers. Silver, a pool of 30,000 free at 3 cents per mile. Gold, $100,299 a year at 2.7 cents. Platinum, $300,699 at 2.5 cents. Reserve, $1,001,999 at 2.3 cents. Year 1 fee waived for new members. Repayment is manual, with no deadline, and the access fee is reclaimable in blocks of 10,000 miles as the member earns. So HeyMax sells miles forward at 2.3 to 3 cents and buys them back at 1.8. A platform that both prints a currency and quotes both sides of it is running a market-making book. That is not a criticism. It is an accurate description, and it is a considerably more sophisticated business than Rewards app suggests, but it should be named because everything else on the burn side follows from that band. So what does the band do to partner selection? A redemption partner is only signable if its miles can be acquired wholesale below roughly the floor. Call it 1.8 to 2 cents, because anything above that means HeyMax loses money on every transfer. Forever, at scale. Now recall the number from Chapter 2. American AAdvantage at roughly 3.5 US cents retail, nearly double the ceiling. That partner was never going to survive contact with the arithmetic, and neither were the other 16. This is why the pruning was not a strategy failure. It was a company discovering, empirically, and in public, where its own line sits. Most loyalty platforms discover this privately, over years. HeyMax discovered it in one day and published the consequence. 3 implications the rest of this volume runs on. 1. The Burnside's growth constraint is procurement, not demand. Members would happily transfer to United or Hilton. The question was never whether they wanted to, it was what those miles cost. So any partner count target is a purchasing problem, and Chapter 4 does that arithmetic. 2. Cheaper redemptions are strategically favored. If the band is fixed, then the partners easiest to fund are the ones whose underlying product is cheapest to buy. A lounge pass, a hotel credit, an experience. A business class award seat is the most expensive thing on the shelf. Chapter 5 argues this is exactly where the shelf is quietly growing. 3. The spread is the business model, and it has a member-facing consequence. A member who buys forward at 3 cents and later redeems at a value below that has paid for time. That is a legitimate product. People pay for time constantly, but it is credit, and it should be understood as credit. Now the honest counterweight, because a chapter that describes a spread can read as an accusation. MileLion's coverage recorded the obvious criticisms of HeyMax First from commenters. Earning back borrowed miles takes real time and effort, and for non-urgent travel, it is unclear why anyone would pay upfront to borrow miles when cash, or a budget carrier, exists. Those are fair. But the free silver tier, the waived first-year fee, the reclaimable access fee, and the absence of a repayment deadline are all consumer-favorable choices that a purely extractive design would not make. This looks like a product built to be used rather than a trap, and the volume should say so while still naming the arithmetic. One thing I cannot resolve from outside. The access fee is quoted in cents. The FlyAnywhere rate is quoted in Singapore dollars. I have treated both as Singapore cents throughout, which is the natural reading for a Singapore product. If the HeyMax First fee is denominated in US cents, the spread is substantially wider than described here. That is a falsifier, and it is in Chapter 10. Chapter 4, 50 by 2027. HeyMax has publicly committed to 50 transfer partners by 2027, stated alongside its Max Miles overhaul. Set that against what actually happened. Pre-June 2026 roster, 38. On the 1st of June, 17 cut 45% of the shelf in a day. On the 2nd of July, Japan Airlines added 21. On the 4th of August, Plaza Premium's Smart Traveler added. Accor devalued on the 1st of July. Radisson still listed as coming soon. So the company cut its shelf nearly in half, and then committed to more than doubling it within about 18 months. The arithmetic stated plainly. From 21 in August 2026 to 50 by the end of 2027 is 29 new partners in roughly 16 months. That is about 2 signings every month without a gap. For context, the original 38 took 3 years to assemble at roughly 1 a month and included partners the company later found it could not afford. The target requires double that rate, sustained, against a filter that did not exist the first time. That filter is Chapter 3's band. Every one of the 29 must be acquirable wholesale below roughly 2 cents. The 17 that failed were the ones priced above it, and they were, disproportionately, the famous programs. So the target cannot be met by re-signing the casualties, and it cannot be met by the mega programs that were never available. Which means the 50 will not look like the 38. They cannot, the arithmetic forbids it. So where can 29 partners actually come from? Regional mid-tier carriers. Bangkok Airways Flyer Bonus, Batik Air, Vietjet, Cebu Pacific and their peers. Small programs, feeder-hungry, wholesale-friendly, and aligned with the corridor geography Chapter 2 identified, individually minor. Collectively, this is how a shelf gets to 50. Asian hotel groups. The current hotel shelf is 6, unworked and plausibly wholesale-friendly, Melia, Miners Anantara and Avani, Banyan Tree, Millennium, Pan-Pacific, Far East Hospitality, regional footprints, weaker programs, more motivated. Experiences and lounges. Chapter 5's subject and the fastest-moving category on the shelf right now. And re-signings at wholesale. Royal Orchid Plus is the one the market series argued should come back. The Thailand volume made a treaty the gate of its entire entry plan. Hilton, Marriott, and Hyatt are pricing problems rather than relationship problems. Now a prediction, stated so it can be tested. HeyMax reaches or approaches 50 mostly through hotels, lounges, experiences, and regional mid-tier carriers, not through recovering the 17. If the roster in late 2027 is dominated by Asian hotel groups, experience partners, and second-tier carriers, this volume was right. If the famous names return, the funding ceiling moved, and Chapter 3 needs rewriting. And now a fair question the company deserves to have asked in its own defense. Is 50 even the right target? A shelf of 50 partners where 30 are marginal is worse for a member than a shelf of 21 that all work. More choice, more confusion, more balances stranded below minimums, and a support burden on everyone. The Klook page in the companion volume showed HeyMax already runs granular per category complexity. Adding 29 partners multiplies that. Partner count is a marketing metric. It is legible, it sounds like progress, and it is what a series a deck reports. Redemption value per mile is the metric that matters to a member, and it is not obviously improved by breadth. The honest position is that 50 is a reasonable ambition if the 29 are cheap and useful, and an actively harmful one if they are signed to hit a number. The pruning suggests the company now knows the difference, which is the strongest argument that the target will be met sensibly or quietly missed, rather than met badly. Chapter 5, the category that is actually growing. Everyone reads the burn side as an airline story, because transfer partners are how this industry describes itself. But look at what has been added since the pruning, rather than what was lost. A different picture appears. Since June 2026, the shelf has gained. Japan Airlines Mileage Bank on the 2nd of July. And Plaza Premium's Smart Traveler on the 4th of August, max miles converting at 1-to-1, minimum 1,000, redeemable against airport lounges, dining outlets and travel services for members in Singapore and Hong Kong. One airline, one lounge network. Now widen the frame. The shelf already carries U points at 1 to 3, a coalition currency, not a travel program, and luxury escapes at 1 to 3, which the dataset is careful to note is hotel and travel agency credit rather than miles. So there are 3 distinct burn shapes, not one. Award chart transfers, 15 airlines almost all at 1 to 1, the classic shelf. This is the half that shrank. Hotel transfers, 6 partners, ratios from 1 to 1.5 down to 5 to 1, wide quality spread, as Chapter 1 showed. And coalition and experience redemptions, U, Plaza Premium, luxury escapes, this is the half that is growing. Why does the third category work economically? Chapter 3 established the band. Partners must be fundable below roughly 2 cents a mile. Now ask what each redemption actually costs HeyMax to supply. A business class award seat is the most expensive thing a loyalty currency can buy. A lounge pass, a hotel credit, a dining voucher, a coalition point, all are wholesale purchasable at a fraction of it. The cheaper the underlying product, the easier it is to keep inside the band. Which means the burn side's growth is being steered by its funding ceiling, and steered away from aviation. That is not a stated strategy anywhere I can find. It is what the additions since June 2026 actually show. Plaza Premium is the important one, and it deserves naming precisely. It is the first non-flight, non-hotel category on the shelf. Lounges are an experience redemption, not an award chart. They break the airline or hotel binary the entire transfer roster was built on. And a detail worth noting from the same announcement. The quote came from HeyMax's head of loyalty partnerships. The HeyMax Today volume flagged the absence of a business development function as the most striking gap in the company's hiring. That role now exists, which is the precondition for anything in Chapter 7 happening. So where does this category go next, if the reading is right? Other lounge networks, Priority Pass, Dragon Pass, Collinson, Plaza Premium is signed, its direct competitors are the obvious next calls, and a member who values lounge access values it in more than one network. Airport Retail and Duty Free, iShop Changi, Lot, King Power, travel adjacent, high margin, and structurally keen on pre-committed spend. Experience Marketplaces, Klook is already an earn partner. A burn direction is the natural inversion and needs no new relationship, only a new agreement. Rail, there is no rail partner anywhere on the shelf. Japan's rail passes, Korea's KTX, and eventually the Singapore to Johor rapid transit link are all travel irrelevant, and none is an airline. Cruise and tour, entirely untouched. Grade, a minus as a category. The single most promising direction on the burn side, and the one most likely to deliver Chapter 4's 29. Now the honest caution. Experience redemptions are easier to fund, and less aspirational. The reason a transferable currency commands loyalty at all is the business class seat at the end of it. That is the story members tell themselves while accumulating. A shelf that drifts toward lounges and hotel credits is cheaper to run and quietly less exciting. And if aspiration erodes, so does the accumulation behavior that funds everything. The right answer is probably both. Keep the aspirational airline core intact and honest, and grow the volume in experiences. But it is worth naming the tension, rather than pretending the cheap direction is costless. Chapter 6, KrisFlyer and the absence that has to be addressed. Any Singaporean looking at HeyMax's transfer shelf asks the same question within about 4 seconds, so this volume should answer it, rather than let it hang. Where's KrisFlyer? Singapore Airlines program is the home market aspiration. It is the currency Singaporean optimizers actually collect. The Indonesia volume found that Pinterpoint, that country's leading points publication, names KrisFlyer first in its domestic top 3, ahead of the flag carrier. Malaysian bank points reach it. Indonesian bank points reach it. Citibank Vietnam reaches it. A Singapore-based rewards platform with 21 transfer partners does not. Run the 5 questions, and the answer is uncomfortable but clear. Deficit none, and this is the whole story. KrisFlyer has more demand for its award seats than it has award seats. It does not need feeder currencies. It does not need distribution. And it does not need to introduce its members to anybody. Every other partner on HeyMax's shelf signed because it wanted volume it could not generate itself. Singapore Airlines has the opposite problem. Funding, even if willing, a program with that much unmet demand prices its miles at retail or above. Chapter 3's band, roughly 2 cents, is not in the conversation. Governance not reached. Demographics, perfect overlap, which is precisely the difficulty. HeyMax's members are Singapore Airlines members. A transfer arrangement would let HeyMax intermediate a relationship the airline already owns directly in its own home market with its own most valuable customers. Replication not reached. Declined on deficit, and it is the most decisive decline in either volume. There is no version of this negotiation where the counterparty needs anything. The series anchor doctrine says, enter where a counterparty has a deficit. KrisFlyer's deficit is negative. Why does the absence matter more than a missing logo? Because it means HeyMax cannot serve the single most common Singaporean aspiration through its own currency. A member accumulating max miles to fly Singapore Airlines in business class has to go through a bank co-brand instead, which is exactly the incumbent path the platform exists to improve on. That is a real product limitation, and no amount of shelf breadth fixes it. Now, what the shelf does instead, and it is a better answer than it first looks. Cathay's Asia miles for the Hong Kong corridor. Japan Airlines added July 2026 for the Japan corridor the Japan volume called Decisive, EVA for Taipei. Vietnam Airlines, Garuda and Philippine Airlines for the Southeast Asian markets the recent commission audited. Qatar for the Gulf and, as Chapter 8 covers, for Avios, Flying Blue for Europe. A Singaporean cannot fly Singapore Airlines on max miles, but they can fly almost everywhere Singapore Airlines flies on somebody else. Whether that substitution satisfies a member is an empirical question about aspiration, and I do not have the data to answer it. 2 things could change this, both unlikely. Singapore Airlines demand softens. Programs court feeders when seats go unsold. Nothing in the current record suggests that. Or a structural deal rather than a transfer deal. KrisFlyer has commercial relationships with banks and merchants that are not mile transfer arrangements. A co-marketing or earnside relationship is a different and more plausible conversation than a transfer treaty. And note this, Singapore Airlines already appears as a merchant on HeyMax's earnside. HeyMax's own help center names it. So the relationship exists. It just runs the other way, in the direction where the airline has something to gain. The honest summary. KrisFlyer is the most valuable unworked burn partner on the map and almost certainly unavailable for a reason that is structural rather than tactical. A volume that listed it as an opportunity without saying why it will not happen would be selling optimism. It is a decline, and the reasoning is the same anchor doctrine that has governed 18 market volumes. You cannot sign a counterparty who needs nothing. Chapter 7, the Signable Ones. Chapter 6 handled the partner who will not sign. This chapter is the ones who will, graded on the 5 questions, with the funding band from Chapter 3 applied to everyone. The band does most of the sorting. A candidate is only real if its miles can be bought wholesale below roughly 2 cents, which rules out every program with more demand than seats, and rules in the mid-sized carriers who want feeder volume. That profile is exactly what survived the pruning, and it is the profile of everything below. Royal Orchid Plus, Grade A, the one resigning worth chasing. Deficit: Thai Airways emerged from court-supervised rehabilitation with a program in rebuild mode. Expanding partners, marketing hard, and shipping Smart Miles Pay, Cash Plus Miles Fare Payment, which is the signature move of a program managing a liability while courting engagement. The Thailand volume read that posture as sell mode and made a treaty the gate of its entire entry plan. Funding: Unproven at wholesale, it was cut in June 2026 precisely because retail Thai miles cost more than the band bears. But the regional prior is strong. Japan Airlines, EVA, Vietnam Airlines, and Garuda are 4 independent demonstrations that Asian flag carrier programs in rebuild mode wholesale inside the ceiling. Governance: This is where the diligence sits. A post-rehabilitation carrier's loyalty promises need rate protection with teeth, notice periods, floor guarantees, terms that survive a second restructuring. Demographics exact, replication total. The only cut partner this series has argued should return, and note, it does not require entering Thailand. The treaty is worth having for the corridor alone. Malaysia Airlines Enrich, Grade A and the cleanest available. Deficit: Enrich is buying bank points aggressively from roughly 14 Malaysian issuers, running repeated 20 and 10% conversion bonuses through 2026. A program campaigning that hard for feeder volume is telling you what it wants, in public. Governance: The soundest anchor counterparty on the belt. No restructuring overhang, no sovereign fund deadline, unlike Thai Airways or Garuda. Corridor: Kuala Lumpur to Singapore is the 4th busiest international route on Earth. Funding: Unproven, but the behavior points the right way. And the Malaysia volume's key point applies here. This treaty is worth having whether or not HeyMax ever enters Malaysia. It is a shelf addition, not a market entry, which makes it cheap in every sense. Regional mid-tier carriers, Grade B to B plus each, and collectively the answer to Chapter 4. Bangkok Airways Flyer Bonus, Batik Air, Vietjet, Cebu Pacific and their peers, weak programs, real route networks, genuine feeder appetite, and no pricing power. Individually, each is a small addition. Together, they are how a roster gets from 21 toward 50 without breaking the band. The Thailand volume noted Bangkok Airways as a boutique second option rather than real depth. True as an anchor, but the test here is different. A shelf partner does not need to carry a market. It needs to be cheap, useful to somebody, and quick to sign. Asian hotel groups, Grade B+. The current hotel shelf is 6 with a 7.5-fold quality spread. Genuinely unworked and plausibly wholesale-friendly, MileLion, Miners Anantara and Avani, Banyan Tree, Millennium, Pan Pacific, Far East Hospitality. Regional footprints, weaker programs, more motivated to sell. Hilton, Marriott, and Hyatt are a different case. They were cut, not never signed. Their absence is a pricing problem, not a relationship problem, and nothing about their negotiating position has weakened since June. One structural note on hotels. Chapter 1 showed ratios from 1 to 1.5 to 5 to 1. Adding more hotel partners at Shangri-La-like rates would grow the count and degrade the shelf. If the 50-partner target is pursued through hotels, the ratios are the thing to watch. And a note on what is deliberately absent from this chapter. U.S. legacy programs, AAdvantage, United, Delta, Alaska, are structurally unavailable at roughly 3.5 cents retail. They are the reason the pruning happened, and nothing has changed. Emirates, Etihad, and Turkish were cut once already. Gulf programs with their own demand do not need HeyMax. None of these is an opportunity. Listing them as a wish list would be the analytical equivalent of hoping. Chapter 8, What One Door Means. Most analysis of a transfer shelf counts partners. The more useful exercise is counting doors, the number of independent routes to a given kind of value. because that is what determines what happens when one closes. By that measure, the pruning did something more consequential than shrink the roster. Avios First. British Airways Executive Club was cut on the 1st of June, 2026. The dataset states the consequence plainly. Qatar Airways Privilege Club is now HeyMax's only gateway into the Avios pool. Avios matters disproportionately because it is not one program but a family. British Airways, Iberia, Aer Lingus, Qatar, and Finnair share a currency, and moving between them opens redemption options no single program offers. It is one of the genuinely useful things a transferable currency can reach. HeyMax reaches all of it through a single door. If Qatar repriced, restricted transfers, or exited, that entire family would vanish from the shelf in one move. Not degraded, gone. That is concentration risk, and it is invisible in a partner count. 21 partners sounds diversified, one Avios door does not. North America next. Aeroplan, AAdvantage, United, and Alaska all went in June. There is now no meaningful North American redemption path on the shelf at all. Chapter 3 explains why those programs price at or above the band. And the United States volume explained why entering that market makes no sense. But a member wanting to fly to North America on max miles is now reliant on Flying Blue's partner network or on FlyAnywhere's cash reimbursement. The first is indirect. The second is not really a redemption, it is a refund. This is the honest cost of the pruning, and it is worth stating because Chapter 2 argued the cuts were correct. Both are true. The arithmetic was right, and the members who wanted North America lost something real. Now hotels. 6 partners with a 7.5-fold ratio spread is not 6 doors. IHG at 1-to-1.5 is a genuinely good redemption. Shangri-La at 5-to-1, with a 5,000-mile minimum, is close to a token listing. And Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt, the 3 global programs most members actually hold, were all cut. Functionally, the hotel shelf is 1 good door, 1 fair one recently degraded, and 3 that are hard to recommend. The airline shelf, by contrast, is healthier than it looks. 14 partners at 1-to-1 across Asia-Pacific is genuine diversification for the corridors that matter, with real substitutes. Japan reachable via JAL, Hong Kong via Cathay. Taipei via EVA, Southeast Asia several ways. If any one of those went, members would have alternatives. That is what depth looks like. So the shelf's true shape is this. Deep and redundant across Asia-Pacific aviation. Single-doored on Avios, absent on North America, thin and uneven on hotels, and newly growing on experiences per Chapter 5. What follows for partner strategy? First, a second Avios door is worth more than its member volume suggests. Finnair or Aer Lingus would be small partners individually, and they would convert a single point of failure into a redundant path. That is a resilience purchase rather than a growth one. And resilience purchases are systematically underprioritized because they do not move a partner count in a way anyone notices. Second, hotel quality beats hotel quantity. 1 more IHG grade partner improves the shelf more than 3 more Shangri-La grade ones, while a partner count target pushes the opposite way. Chapter 4 warned that 50 could be met badly. Hotels are where that would show first. And third, the concentration lens should be applied before every new signing. The question is not only is this partner good, it is also, what does this partner make us less dependent on? 21 is account, doors are the measure. Chapter 9, what the shelf says about the company. A transfer roster is a strategy document that nobody edits for the audience. It records what a company could afford, who would take its call, and where it thinks its members are going. Read HeyMax's that way, and 4 things come out. 1. The company found its ceiling in public and acted on it. Most loyalty platforms discover the true cost of their currency slowly and privately, and correct by quiet devaluation. A ratio nudged here, an award chart moved there. HeyMax cut 45% of its shelf in a single day and ended its flagship cash conversion product at the same time. That is a more honest correction than a series of small devaluations, and a more painful one. It is also, on the evidence of Chapter 3's numbers, a correct one. Partners priced at 3.5 cents cannot be funded by a currency that sells at 3 and reimburses at 1.8. And note, the Accor devaluation on the 1st of July, from 1-to-1 down to 3-to-2, shows the company can do it the quiet way too. It chose the loud way for the 17. 2. The shelf now matches the corridors. Japan Airlines, Cathay, EVA Vietnam Airlines, Garuda, Philippine Airlines, AirAsia, Xiamen, Air Astana, Air India. The redemption geography is Asia-Pacific, and it maps onto exactly the corridors this series spent 18 market volumes describing. Singapore to Bangkok, Hong Kong to Tokyo, the Jakarta and Manila flows, the Vietnamese sectors out of Changi. Before June 2026, the shelf was global and unfocused, carrying Frontier Miles and Virgin Australia alongside Cathay. After, it is regional and coherent. A company's burn shelf and its earn footprint finally point the same way. And that alignment happened by subtraction rather than by design, which is worth being honest about. Nobody set out to regionalize, the funding ceiling did it. 3. The growth is leaving aviation, quietly. Since the pruning, the additions are one airline and one lounge network, on top of an existing coalition currency and a hotel credit partner. Chapter 5 argued this is economically inevitable. Experiences are cheaper to fund than award seats, and the band is fixed. But nothing in HeyMax's public communication frames it that way. The stated target is 50 transfer partners. The actual direction of travel is toward redemptions that are not transfers at all. 4. The organization caught up to the strategy. The HeyMax Today volume flagged the absence of a business development function as the most striking gap in the company's hiring. No risk or actuarial function. No BD role for the B2B business, while carrying a 9-figure liability in a currency it prints itself. The August 2026 Plaza Premium announcement carried a quote from a head of loyalty partnerships. That role now exists. Given Chapter 4 requires roughly 2 signings a month for 16 months, its existence is the difference between a target and a press release. Now what the shelf does not tell you, and where an outsider has to stop. It does not show wholesale prices. Every judgment in this volume about what is signable rests on inference from public retail rates and from which partners survived. A strong inference, but an inference. It does not show transfer volumes. 21 partners are listed. How many members actually use each is unknown, and it is entirely possible that 3 partners carry 90% of redemptions. If so, the shelf's breadth is more marketing than product, and Chapter 8's concentration analysis understates the problem considerably. And it does not show breakage. The proportion of max miles never redeemed at all, which is the single largest determinant of whether any of this arithmetic works. Those 3 numbers would change this volume more than any partner announcement. And none of them is public. That is the honest limit of reading a company from its shelf. Chapter 10, The Verdict and the Falsifiers. The verdict, the pruning was right. The 50-partner target is a procurement problem rather than a partnership problem, and the burn side's real growth is leaving aviation, whether or not anyone has said so out loud. The working compressed. HeyMax sells its own currency forward at 2.3 to 3 cents and reimburses it at 1.8. That band is the governing fact of the entire burn side. A partner is signable only if its miles can be bought wholesale below roughly 2 cents, and American AAdvantage retails at about 3.5. The 17 partners cut on the 1st of June 2026 were not a strategic retreat. They were the ones costing more than the currency is worth. What survived regionalized the shelf onto exactly the corridors this series spent 18 volumes mapping. That alignment happened by subtraction, not design. 4 recommendations in order. 1. Resign Royal Orchid Plus and sign Malaysia Airlines Enrich. Both are mid-sized Asian flag carrier programs in demonstrable feeder hunting postures. Thai shipping Smart Miles Pay. Enrich running repeated conversion bonuses across 14 issuers. Both fit the corridor geography. And critically, neither requires entering the country. They are shelf additions at negotiation cost. 2. Buy a second Avio's door. Finnair or Aer Lingus would be small partners individually, and they would convert a single point of failure into a redundant path to an entire currency family. Resilience purchases never move a partner count in a way anyone notices, which is exactly why they get skipped. 3. Run at the experience category deliberately rather than opportunistically. Plaza Premium proved the shape. The competing lounge networks, airport retail, a burn direction for Klook, rail, cruise. These are cheaper to fund than award seats, easier to keep inside the band, and they are where 29 new partners can actually come from. 4. Watch hotel ratios, not hotel count. A 7.5-fold spread, from IHG at 1:1.5 down to Shangri-La at 5:1, means 6 hotel partners describes 1 good door and several tokens. 1 more IHG grade partner beats 3 more Shangri-La grade ones, and a partner count target pushes precisely the wrong way. And one thing to stop doing, treating 50 as the metric. Partner count is legible, marketable, and close to meaningless to a member. Redemption value per mile is the number that matters, and breadth does not obviously improve it. 50 is a good ambition if the 29 are cheap and useful. It is actively harmful if they are signed to hit a number. Now the falsifiers, ordered by likelihood. 1. Transfer volumes are far more concentrated than the shelf implies. 21 partners are listed. If 3 carry 90% of redemptions, then breadth is marketing rather than product. Chapter 8's concentration analysis badly understates the risk, and the 50-partner target is worse than useless. This is the number I most want and cannot get, and it would change this volume more than any announcement. 2. The spread is denominated differently than I assumed. HeyMax First's access fee is quoted in cents, FlyAnywhere in Singapore dollars. I have read both as Singapore cents, which is the natural reading for a Singapore product. If the access fee is US cents, the spread is materially wider, and Chapter 3 needs rewriting. Resolvable by reading one term's page properly. 3. The wholesale ceiling is higher than inferred. My entire signable or not analysis rests on inferring the band from public retail rates, and from which partners survived. If HeyMax can actually fund partners above 2 cents through volume commitments, marketing offsets, or equity-like arrangements, then the US legacy programs are not permanently foreclosed, and Chapter 7's declines are wrong. 4. Breakage is doing more work than assumed. If a large share of max miles are never redeemed, the effective cost per issued mile is far below the transfer cost. The band widens, and expensive partners become affordable. Invisible from outside, decisive internally. 5. The 17 come back. If the famous names return at wholesale during 2027, the funding ceiling moved, and Chapter 4's prediction that 50 arrives through hotels, lounges, experiences, and regional carriers is falsified. This one is publicly testable, and it is the cleanest test in the volume. Watch the roster in late 2027 and see whether it is dominated by Asian mid-tier and experience partners or by returning Western programs. 5 falsifiers, and note the asymmetry with the companion volume. On the earn side, 4 of 5 resolved inside HeyMax in an afternoon. Here, one is publicly testable by watching a roster. The other 4 require data, volumes, breakage, wholesale rates that no external analyst will ever see. That is the honest limit of reading a loyalty currency from outside. You can price what it sells for, you can observe what it buys, you can infer the band between. You cannot see how much of it is never spent, and that, in the end, is the number the whole business turns on.